Just in time for the president's birthday, the royal family of Qatar has announced plans to give him, the U.S. government, a super luxury Boeing 747-8 jet. So put up your tray tables and fasten your safety belts, America, because it's time to meet the new Air Force One. Configured for commercial flights, the plane seats 600 passengers, but in its current blinged-out formation, the $400 million palace in the sky features 3 lounges, 2 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, 5 galleys, a private office, and enough business-class seating to accommodate dozens of guests. Plus, it's got 5 55-inch TV monitors, 4 46-inch monitors, 1 40-inch monitor, and 1 32-inch, because you know the president likes to watch a lot of TV. The haters and losers are calling this blatant corruption. The president calls it a gimme.
When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
But even if it's technically possible for this aircraft to become the new Air Force One, and even if accepting it would save taxpayers money, this generous gift from a foreign oil-rich monarchy cannot possibly be legal, right? Well, in a word, no. But the Supreme Court has made it basically impossible for anyone to stop it. Thanks, Chief Justice Roberts. On the eve of Donald Trump's major foreign trip to the Middle East, ABC reported that the Trump administration was preparing to accept a luxury Boeing 747-8 from the Qatari royal family. Apparently, he toured it in February at the Palm Beach airport, and he liked it so much that they just gave it to him out of the goodness of their hearts.
He said, if I can help you, let me do that. And they had a plane. Not a new plane at all.
The plan is for the Defense Department to take possession and then retrofit the jet with the security and communication systems required to transport the president and his entourage, but only this president. In January of 2029, before Trump leaves office, the plane will be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation, which currently doesn't exist, but that's a problem for another day, as is the matter of what the next president is going to ride around in. Trump tweeted, "The fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist that we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Democrats are world-class losers, MAGA." The legal issues here are a lot. But let's start with the logistical ones, because Trump says he'll be flying around on Qatar Force One by the end of the year, and we have questions. According to the Air Force, the president's plane requires anti-missile countermeasures, including flare and chaff systems, nuclear electromagnetic pulse shielding, radar jammers, encryption systems with multiple layers of redundancy, and a whole bunch of top-secret military technology to operate as a nuclear command center while staying airborne for years, not days, in the event of nuclear war. You can't just bolt that stuff into the Love Blimp and head down to the Lido deck for a cocktail until it's time to rip it out again a couple years later. According to Kevin Buckley, a former Air Force official who oversaw the Air Force One replacement program, the aircraft would need to be torn down and rebuilt from the inside out, including overhauling electrical wiring, avionics, and power systems to install secure presidential communications, self-defense tech, and electromagnetic shielding. As one Defense Department source told the New York Times, we're talking years, not months. There's a reason why it's taken Boeing 9 years and counting to replace the 2 presidential planes the White House agreed to buy in Trump's first term. Boeing agreed to eat the cost overruns, and it's already $2.5 billion in the red on a $3.9 billion contract. That's why Trump was pissed and looking wistfully at the Qatari royals' ride, on top of which this plane is being gifted to us from a country Trump himself blockaded in 2017, accusing it of sponsoring terrorism, despite the fact that Qatar is home to a U.S. military base. That's a country that has every incentive to eavesdrop on the president and his advisors, or do worse. Experts are calling this a security nightmare. Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito told CNN, "I'd be checking for bugs is what I'd be checking for," and even Senator Ted Cruz said this is a bad idea.
I also think that the plane poses significant espionage and surveillance problems, so we'll see how this issue plays out, but I certainly have concerns.
I can't believe you guys made me agree with Ted Cruz. Okay, so this plan seems wildly unfeasible. And since we've already bought the 2 replacement Air Force One planes from Boeing, it's not going to save us any money. In fact, it will cost us hundreds of millions of dollars to retrofit tacky Air One. But this is a law channel, so let's talk about the law. Can the president legally accept a $400 million plane from a foreign country? Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution says no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, except if any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. It's called the Foreign Emoluments Clause, and we also have a Domestic Emoluments Clause that bars the president from receiving any other emolument from the United States or any state beyond his fixed salary, because the framers of our Constitution were really serious about the president not profiting from his office. And that's why President Jimmy Carter had to give up his family peanut farm, because having a president get paid for peanuts would have been an ethical scandal. In his first term, Donald Trump at least pretended to divest from his company.
My two sons, who are right here, Don and Eric, are going to be running the company. They are going to be running it in a very professional manner. They're not going to discuss it with me.
But he still held on to his hotels and golf clubs, which became a magnet for companies and foreign governments that hoped to curry favor with the president. As one Asian diplomat told the Washington Post, "Why wouldn't I stay at his hotel blocks from the White House so I can tell the new president, I love your new hotel? Isn't it rude to come to his city and say, I am staying at your competitor?" Even before he was inaugurated, Saudi Arabia booked 500 nights at the Trump Hotel in D.C. They used the rooms to put up U.S. military veterans so they could lobby Congress against the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, which authorized lawsuits by families of September 11th victims against Saudi Arabia. The Trump properties also benefited from a rash of ghost bookings, as foreign governments simply paid for blocks of rooms and never bothered to show up. All of this clearly violated the Foreign Emoluments Clause, and state governments filling Trump's pockets by conducting official business at his clubs violated the Domestic Emoluments Clause. The only question was who had the power to do something about it. During the first Trump term, there were three main Emoluments Clause cases. Competitors claiming they lost business because local and foreign tourists patronized Trump properties rather than theirs filed suit in New York and Maryland. And over 200 members of Congress sued, saying that Trump had usurped their authority to grant or withhold consent to a foreign emolument. Because remember, the Constitution says the president cannot accept gifts without the consent of the Congress. That case was filed in 2017 when Democrats did not have a majority in either house of Congress. So they could only sue in their individual capacities, and the D.C. Circuit said that they didn't have standing to sue as individual senators and representatives. Remember, standing is the right to come into court and vindicate some injury. And we don't know how that case would have come out if it was brought by the whole House of Representatives itself when the Democrats took it back in 2018. And look, maybe the Democrats will take back the House in 2026 and file a suit over the Qatari boondoggle. But the other two cases from Trump's first term give us a pretty good idea of how the Supreme Court would deal with it if they did. In those cases filed in New York and Maryland, the appeals courts, that is the Second and Fourth Circuits, found that the plaintiffs did have standing to sue because Trump was taking all those illegal emoluments and eating into their business. But thanks to Trump's stalling, by the time it got up to the Supreme Court, it was already the end of 2020, and Trump had lost the election to Joe Biden. So in December of 2020, Trump's Solicitor General Jeffrey Wall explicitly asked the Supreme Court to just run out the clock until Trump was out of office and then disappear the Second and Fourth Circuit decisions as moot. The technical term for this judicial three-step dance is a GVR, which stands for grant, vacate, and remand. Wall asked them to sit on Trump's petition to overturn the appeals court rulings until after Biden was inaugurated, then grant the petition and vacate the lower court rulings, essentially wiping away the Second and Fourth Circuit opinions, saying that Trump's competitors had standing to sue. And then the court could remand the cases to the lower courts with instructions to dismiss because they were moot once Trump was out of office. And that's exactly what they did. The Supreme Court's 6 conservative justices made sure there would be no precedent on the books that the president could be sued over the Emoluments Clause, which suggests that if the Democrats did take back one of the chambers of Congress in 2026, the Supreme Court would just let that case drag out until it was moot in 2029. Thanks again, Chief Justice Roberts.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Won't forget.
Between the emoluments cases and the immunity decision, the Supreme Court has signaled loud and clear that they're not going to hold the president to account. And so, this time around, Trump didn't even bother pretending to separate himself from his family business or claim that he wasn't going to do any foreign deals. His family already made $2.9 billion in just 3 months by trading in crypto coins. They just inked deals to build a hotel tower in Saudi Arabia and a luxury golf resort in Qatar, and by sheer coincidence, the U.S. just greenlit a $142 billion arms deal with Mohammed Mohammed bin Salman, the head of the Saudi royal family. And of course, there's the other coincidence of the $400 million Sky Palace. But the Supreme Court has said that doesn't count as an emolument, or at least there's no one with the ability to do anything about it unless Congress decides to impeach the president. But could it be a bribe? Trump doing business with the Gulf states while accepting gifts from their leaders certainly has the whiff of bribery. Lucky for him, the Supreme Court has steadily narrowed the definition of public corruption, particularly 18 U.S.C. Section 201, that's federal bribery, and related statutes like the honest services fraud provision, that's 18 U.S.C. Section 1346, and the gratuity statute. In a 2016 case called McDonnell v. United States, the Supreme Court overturned the conviction of former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell for honest services fraud. Essentially, that statute makes it a crime for public officials to steal the honest services they owe to their constituents by abusing their office. In this case, McDonnell accepted over $175,000 in gifts and loans from a guy named Jimmy Williams, who was hawking a dietary supplement called Anatablock. And if that sounds like the plot of a Simpsons episode, wait till you find out what was in it.
Tastes like cigarette butts.
Who gets tobacco? Ding, ding, ding. Anyway, Williams really wanted state research grants to study Anatablock, but McDonnell didn't explicitly make that part happen. Instead, he just introduced Williams around the Capitol and said what a great guy he was and conspicuously downed Anatablock pills during meetings with regulators and the like. And the Supreme Court said that there was no official act that McDonnell traded for all the cash that Williams gave him, so the conviction got tossed. The McDonnell decision really took the teeth out of the honest services fraud statute to the point that the DOJ didn't even bother charging New York Mayor Eric Adams under it when he got caught doing favors for the Turkish government. Then in 2024, the Roberts Court similarly narrowed the federal gratuity statute, which is 18 U.S.C. Section 666. In that case, the defendant, James Snyder, was the mayor of Portage, Indiana. He steered more than $1 million in city contracts to a local truck dealership, which later gave him $13,000 as a token of appreciation. In a 6-3 ruling, the majority held that the law does not criminalize after-the-fact gifts to state and local officials unless there's an explicit quid pro quo at the time of payment. Justice Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion and is frankly bizarre. He said, gratuities are typically payments made to an official after an official act as a token of appreciation. Some gratuities can be problematic. Others are commonplace and might be innocuous. A family gives a holiday tip to the mail carrier. Parents send an end-of-year gift basket to their child's public school teacher. A college dean gives a college sweatshirt to a city council member who comes to speak in an event. A state legislator's neighbor drops off a bottle of wine to congratulate her for her work on a new law. So if you can give an apple to the teacher to say thanks, it's fine for a trucking company to give $13,000 in cash to the mayor of Portage, and it's fine for the Qatari royal family to give a $400 million jet to Donald Trump, just as long as the tip comes after the service or isn't directly connected to an official act. Oh, and while we're thanking the Supreme Court, we can add the immunity decision that the court's conservatives used to disappear the election interference case against Donald Trump in 2024. In that ruling, they said that the president could never be charged with an official act, and no evidence of official act could be used as evidence against him for any other crime. Justice Amy Coney Barrett pointed out that this would make it functionally impossible to charge the president with bribery, since anything he did would be an official act and inadmissible in court. Here, the very acceptance of the gift as head of state is probably an official act, and so this Supreme Court would probably exclude it from any future bribery prosecution. I mean, at this point, you can basically just leave it above my head permanently. The Trump administration has a variety of answers to its critics.
Of course, any donation to this government is always done in full compliance with the law.
Do you worry that if they give us something like this, they want something in return?
Absolutely not, because they know President Trump and they know he only works with the interests of the American public in mind.
Okay, Caroline. ABC reports that Attorney General Pam Bondi says the gift of this plane from the Qatari government does not violate the Emoluments Clause because it's not going to Trump personally, it's going to the government, or at least for a couple of years. She also says that it's perfectly fine to condition this gift on the U.S. government transferring the plane to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation on January 1, 2029. In fact, the agreement calls for the U.S. government to foot the bill to strip out all the military hardware and transfer the plane to the charity. And in another amazing coincidence, before she became the nation's chief law enforcement officer, Pam Bondi worked as a lobbyist for the Qatari government, which paid her $115,000 a month for her services. White House counsel David Warrington, a former lawyer for the Trump campaign, agrees that this deal is totally kosher. They also point to the fact that the Ronald Reagan Library houses an old version of Air Force One, which it has turned into an exhibit open to the public. But a decommissioned plane at the end of its useful life is a far cry from a modern plane which was recently renovated at a massive cost to the American taxpayer. And Trump is saying that he won't be flying on that plane after he leaves office, but he's been awful quiet about just what he intends his charity to do with a jumbo jet. Meanwhile, the president is yelling online that only a fool would turn down this wonderful gift from a country that wants to reward us for a job well done. Great. America is now hustling for tips, or at least the guy in charge is. Now, if it feels overwhelming that the president can just engage in open corruption when not 2 days prior his administration arrested the mayor of Newark on dubious charges, that's because it's supposed to feel overwhelming. And that's not just my speculation. You can hear it yourself from Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon.
The opposition party is the media. And the media can only, because they're dumb and they're lazy, they can only focus on one thing at a time. I said, all we have to do is flood the zone. Every day we hit them with 3 things. They'll bite on one and we'll get all of our stuff done. Bang, bang, bang. These guys will never be able to recover.
That interview was in 2019, and they've had a lot of time since then to practice that grift. So while Trump is tweeting about his intention to openly violate the Constitution, the guy he appointed to run the Department of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., you remember him, is hard at work in the background. Kennedy has already gutted the National Firefighter Cancer Registry, the Firefighter Fatality Investigation and Prevention Program, the Health Hazard Evaluation Program, the Respirator Approval Program, and the Coal Workers Health Surveillance Program, just to name a few. That's all a part of Kennedy's larger initiative called Make America Healthy Again, which is just a Trumpian way of saying that he's hell-bent on shifting the country's medical focus to pseudoscience. And that includes going after his ultimate nemesis, life-saving vaccines for children. I made an in-depth video on all of that, but we can't show it on YouTube without getting demonetized. Advertisers get a little jumpy when you start talking about dead children. But you can watch it and so much more by signing up with the sponsor of today's video, Nebula. And for a limited time, you can get a huge discount off a lifetime membership. You buy once, you get Nebula for life. In fact, we've been really active on Nebula this year with tons of Nebula exclusive videos, like this video on unhinged judges or our analysis on the legality of using prison labor to fight wildfires. On Nebula, you can watch all of our videos ad-free and early because our videos always go up on Nebula first. But what truly makes Nebula the best place to watch LegalEagle content is that just about every video includes additional analysis and opinion that you won't get on YouTube. And make sure to check out tons of original videos from your favorite creators like Johnny Harris, Neo, Jetlag, Real Engineering, Real Life Lore, and hundreds more. And for those of you that want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your friends and family, Nebula is now offering annual gift cards. If you sign up using the link on screen right now, you can give a year of Nebula to a friend for 40% off the yearly subscription, a year of the best content for just $36. That's a gift you can give yourself, by the way. You deserve it. Or check out the lifetime subscription where $300 gets you Nebula for life. Nebula is growing fast and adding tons of new creators to the platform, so this offer is only available for a limited time. After that, click on this link over here for more LegalEagle, or we'll see you in court.